5, and it's Liberal crowning day, right? This whole pageant's over, and we're going to see who the winner is. And oh my gosh, it's Mark Carney. I'm so surprised. The whole thing's rigged. It looks rigged. It seems rigged. People are talking about how it's rigged. Mark Carney's raised $4.5 million. It's rigged. It's rigged. It's super rigged. Chrystia Freeland was on Anderson Cooper last night making the case, talking about Trump's tariffs and things like that. But I think it's really strange how all of these Canadian leaders are doing American TV in order to bolster their campaign. Why are they doing American TV, you might ask? Because Canadians don't watch CBC. They don't watch CTV. They don't watch Canadian news. They don't care about Canadian news. So if a Canadian pops up on their American news, they'll think to themselves, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this. So that's fundamentally why. We're going to do a kitchen table talk today at 1 o'clock, and we'll talk about the Liberal crowning. I guess it won't have happened by then. The Liberal cutoff is 3 o'clock for voting. And then after that, they're going to start the event at 5 p.m., I guess. There's supposed to be an event at 5 o'clock today. So they're going to know super quick. They're going to use Dominion tabulation machines to count the votes, and then boom, right? Bam, you've got a result. No problems. I'm sorry about the open captions. Everybody hated them. So I couldn't deal with it either. It was too visually cacophonous. You're all right. You're exactly right. So I took them off midway through yesterday's episode, and they will remain off. But there is closed captioning for people who like to have closed captioning. All you have to do is push the closed caption button and it'll pop up, I guess. I don't know. I didn't realize you had to add that. I thought YouTube added that. Anyway, now it's there. Anyway, Ruby Dhalla was not invited to the Liberal crowning, and she's not happy about that because she spent $350,000. And it's funny. Do a lot of people have $350,000 laying around? Like Frank Bayless, I can understand that. He got $273 million for ventilators, right? So he's got $350,000 laying around. But former 3-time MP Ruby Dhalla's got $350,000 laying around? Wow, lucky, right? She must have money somewhere. I don't know where she got it, though, doing all that public service. Someone was signing for Joe Biden who is not Joe. They were using his auto sign pen. So there's kind of a scandal brewing there. And there's all sorts of U.S. stuff to talk about. Jagmeet Singh wants to invite Zelynski and uninvite Trump to the G7. So, weird. BC Conservatives are not happy and they're jumping ship from Restad's party. And that's interesting. I've got some color on that. And same thing happening in Alberta with UCP and some talk of a new party and things like that as well. So weird. Crazy times, right? Counter tariffs are worse than not responding at all. Yes. And I'll give you examples of how counter tariffs are worse than not responding at all. So how the Canadian government's hurting us now, right? That's the title of today's show. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, a guy won $30 million in Edmonton, and YEG Wave says an Edmonton man has won $30 million after hitting the Lotto 649 jackpot. Quote, "I want to get out of here," he said. So, what great timing. Holy smoke. I'm leaving. $5 million, you say, Trump? Okay, so I'm on my way. So he's got some pocket change to spare after buying citizenship in the United States or wherever, right? Just anywhere that's not Edmonton, I would imagine is better. If you have $30 million, where are you going? Not if you live in Edmonton, where are you going? I heard he was going to BC, and I thought, really? Huh. Surprising. I thought very, very shocking. The food professor is reporting. Let's talk about tariffs. He says, given the fragility of the Canadian economy, former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen P. Poloz recently stated that counter tariffs are worse than not responding at all. And he, the food professor, wholeheartedly concurs. And he continues on Ottawa's trade war strategy punishes Canadians, not the United States. Ottawa needs to get smarter with trade wars since China is now after Canada too. Yeah, that's an interesting thing that's happened that I haven't heard anything about at all. As soon as Trump was talking about tariffs, and he's only 25% tariffs, people were screaming, right? Absolutely screaming. If you dare to go forward with this. And we didn't hear anything about it until China has actually implemented the tariffs, and it's one of the biggest cash crops in Canadian history, and now it's worthless. So not good. And that's some color on a tab I'll show you later, so credit where it's due. An oil exec says, the food professor is absolutely correct. Counter tariffs might seem like a straightforward way to, quote, fight back in a trade dispute, but they carry several risks and downsides that can make them dangerous to the Canadian economy and impact stability. Here's why. Why is this dangerous? First, it destabilizes the integrated North American economy. We trade about $923 billion annually with supply chains so tangled that car parts cross the border multiple times before hitting the showroom. A 25% tariff on each hop jacks the costs fast. The Bank of Canada is already projecting a 2.4% GDP hit in 1 year. If these stick, the revenue that is wiped off, that's revenue that is wiped off the books completely. To put that into perspective, this is the equivalent of double what we contribute in defense spending to NATO currently. So yikes, that's not great. Then there's the retaliation spiral. Economists and our central banks are already waving huge red flags. Tit for tat like this echoes the Smoot-Hallway disaster of the 1930s, where global trade crashed and the depression deepened. Our economy is already weak. If Canada chooses not to retaliate with counter tariffs in response to U.S. tariffs, several economic and strategic consequences could unfold. Here's an analysis of what might happen. The Americans pay more theory. The immediate effect of the Americans' tariff is that those goods become more expensive for the American buyers. This will hurt their demand, slow their economy, and create political pressure to reverse the tariff, all while we avoid the risks of tit-for-tat trade war. An oil exec continues. Here's why it's safer for us to, one, no retaliatory costs. Canada wouldn't raise tariffs on U.S. goods, so Canadian consumers wouldn't face higher prices for American imports like food, electronics, or machinery. This avoids inflation at home. Two, U.S. self-inflicted pain. If the Americans bear the brunt of their own tariffs, Canada could sit back and let the U.S. economy take the hit and potentially wait out the policy without escalating tensions. Three, de-escalation signal. Not retaliating might be seen as a diplomatic olive branch, preserving long-term goodwill and avoiding a broader conflict that could spill beyond trade, example into border security or energy cooperation. Conclusion: avoiding counter tariffs will spare Canadians immediate price shocks on U.S. imports and keep the trade war from heating up. Inflation stays lower and daily life feels less disrupted. It allows for de-escalation through diplomatic channels and diversification. And I think it correctly identifies some serious pitfalls. And if we don't do counter tariffs, then we look like the good guy in a way that we don't right now. Because right now it looks like we're the irrational, crazy X. Okay. Alberta says Trudeau's retaliatory tariffs just F the plumbing industry so bad. All porcelain fixtures are getting jacked by 25%. We don't make these in Canada. American Standard, Kohler, Toto, all the big brands are made in the USA. What an idiot. Trump's tariffs wouldn't impact at all. So yeah, it's very interesting. So this is because of the retaliatory tariffs. Okay, this is not because of Trump's tariffs. This is because of the retaliatory tariffs jacking these prices up for Canadian consumers in order to harm the United States. So, smart move. Not really. It's a very, very bad move. Here's some more direct impact on Canadians because of this policy. National Post is reporting cross-border shoppers hit with 25% surtax on U.S. purchases when re-entering Canada. And it says from pants to pasta, even your cross-border shopping trip is now subject to 25% tariffs. Again, this is because of Trudeau's counter tariffs. This has nothing to do with Trump's tariffs other than it's in response to them. Okay, the Canadian government is punishing Canadians because of Trump putting on these tariffs. So we're not being punished enough, says the Canadian government. We'll punish them more, they say. Get them. Canadian border officials have started slapping a 25% surtax in addition to applicable duties on most items from the United States that Windsorites and other border residents have crossed with for decades. These countermeasures will apply to commercial shipments, goods imported by mail or courier, and goods imported by individual travelers above their personal exemptions. Karine Mattel said, a spokesperson for the Canadian Border Services Agency told The Star. Surtaxes will remain in place until the U.S. eliminates its trade restrictive measures against Canada. Right, so pressure that Donald Trump, Canadians. Hate him, because it's his fault. That's the idea you're supposed to get. And man, I have heard in the last couple of days people hating on Trump way more. And I think that I'm surprised and disappointed that it's working as well as it's working. People are falling right in line, and it's like stay home, stay safe. You don't think that the nurses are heroes. Where's your mask? It's all of the same kind of social contagion again, right? And it's very similar to COVID. Mark says, Mary Ng, Trump refuses to speak to liberals. The only way they find out about what's going on is through Trump's social media account. Do you think this is a problem? Watch Ng scramble to answer the question. It's it's a minute and 46, and she kind of just starts rambling. So I'll stop it when it stops making sense to listen to, probably about a minute, but here we go.
Minister Ng, you mentioned that you didn't hear about the most recent threat on lumber and dairy until you walked into this press conference. Do you think it's a problem that you're not hearing directly from the administration, but rather you're learning this through media reports?
Well, we hear many things every day.
Smooth. Well, we hear many things every day. Are you kidding me? That's your response? Do you think that it's a problem that our biggest trading partner is not communicating directly with you, but instead communicating only by social media post? And she has nothing? Absolutely nothing? And really, the answer doesn't get better here. We'll listen to another little bit of it just to make sure you understand that she has absolutely nothing.
And what would be terrific, of course, is to have a modality for working together on issues of concern so that we can address them.
Ways to sound smart. Throw in a word or two there that sound real big and long, like modality, right? It's like a framework, right? Same thing, just more clinical. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Mr. Surveillance says, so she's got nothing. And, it would be really good if they could work together with us. Yay. Yeah, bullshit. The problem is Canada undermines everything that the United States tries to do. It seems, well, not everything necessarily, but in these trade negotiations, it seems like Canada's saber rattling. And after Trump threatened for annexation, fair enough, but it seems like Canada's saber rattling and continuing this conflict where Trump may be offering an olive branch, Canada's now pushing, right? So Trump says, no tariffs until April 2nd. And the stability is not good. I said at the end of my show the other day, I need to understand the goal here in order to get on somebody's side about this whole thing. And I mean, I'm not on the side of Team Canada because Team Canada are the same people who locked us down. Team Canada is a fabricated bullshit nonsense group to get behind just to oppose anything Trump. And I'm not on board with that, but I'm also not on board with the instability being introduced for businesses and for all the rest. Trump is doing this. He's going to lose support from people who would previously support him. And it's a communication issue. He's not communicating well about what his goals are, what he wants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like if he wanted the fentanyl being dealt with and he thinks Canada's not really dealing with it and thinks that we need the tariffs on, then great, be clear about that. I think Canada's not doing enough. Here's what they need to do, bare minimum. Here's why I think what they did was bullshit. Cool, right? Like now I can understand where you stand and where Canada stands. And now Canada can understand where they stand and are able to then respond appropriately with that. But where we are is in fog of war, I guess. And it seems like I don't understand what Trump really wants. It seems like fentanyl is behaving as a proxy. Trump is allowing Trudeau to have it's less than 1% crossing the border space on the board, right? He's allowing that to kind of stand where that's probably not true. And Sam Cooper and other people are pushing back and saying there's a lot more, like Canada's responsible for a lot more. We're manufacturing it here. And so again, it's a war of information and it's a war of hearts and minds of support and things like that. And in my opinion, right now, Trump is not communicating well with Canadians, and like tariffs hurt the Americans too. American people who shop at Canadian brands or things like that and get a big bill, they're upset about that, and they don't understand what's going on either. They don't understand it rationally. They don't get it, right? Like it's insane. Not insane. Like I understand why they don't get it, and it's part of my criticism. They're not being educated either to what's going on and which side they should get on. And I've told you, people who watch the show, that you need to tell your family your story, because if they're not on board with your story, then you start seeking out people who are interested in hearing your story. You know what I'm saying? And so telling your story every day to your family helps make sure there's that cohesion in your family. And Trump's got a story, he's telling it, but it's very unclear. It's not very clear. And there are people who can suss it out, right, in the murk, and they say that this is what he means, Maybe, maybe not. But fundamentally, it's a communication issue. And I think that he's losing this war because of his style of communication at this point in time. And he's done better in the past, I think. But at this point in time, it's not working to his advantage. And so I think that people are getting itchy about it. And, well, it's allowing the media to seed Trump as the big bad, as the boogeyman, to have Trudeau be the strongman against. And at this point, it looks like he's winning. Like Canada's taking this April pause and pressuring Trump to make it a permanent pause because they think that we've got leverage. Maybe they're right. I don't know. But it seems strange. This isn't going the way I expected it to go, honestly. So anyway, Mr. Surveillance says, Poilievre is desperately trying to cash in on Trump derangement syndrome while calling for tariffs, hidden taxes on Canada's poorest consumers. So he's saying we've got to do these counter tariffs as well, and it's not good for Canadians. I've given you two examples of how these tariffs, counter tariffs, harm Canadians, and Poilievre's calling for exactly the same. I don't understand how people can tolerate two parties calling for exactly the same response to this, probably the biggest economic crisis in a decade, right? Since 2008, right? For Canada anyway. And in Canada, we were very well positioned in 2008 to weather that economic crisis. So now, I don't know that we're in a good position to weather anything at this point in time. Certainly not even annexation threats from the United States. Here's Poilievre saying, that Liberal plan sounds wonderful.
We are slow to anger and quick to forgive, but never confuse our kindness with weakness.
We'll just leave that there. But it's a whole, Canadiana montage. And again, friendly, fearless, always Canada first, he says. So this whole Canada first thing is the branding, but it's not the actions of this Poilievre Conservative Party. Podhead Politics says 100% tariffs on canola oil from China basically makes the largest cash crop in Canada worthless. Of course, no response from Ottawa. Absolutely nothing, right? Team Canada. Woo! If it's west of Ottawa, it doesn't really matter. Alberta Leonidas says, so China puts 100% tariffs on Canadian goods. Where are the retaliation tariffs? Where are the speeches from Ford and Smith? What Chinese goods are banned? Oh, nothing. Is it because China does run Canada already? Yeah, kind of, sort of. Scott Moe is responding to Trevor in this whole situation with China making the cash crop of canola worthless. And Trevor says, I've said it before that my biggest fear in farming isn't weather, it's government policy. The federal Liberals' EV tariff 6 months ago on China after giving Volkswagen $13 billion to prop up the eastern auto industry has just affected Western Canada farmers, with China imposing 100% tariff on canola and peas. But tell me again that this is an East versus West, East voters versus West voters. Propping up inefficient, over-unionized industries is not a great growth plan. Saskatchewan agriculture is some of the best in the world when it comes to efficiency. We need at least Canadians to understand our story. More information here. So you can check that out if you're interested. But it's Scott Moe says, well put, Trevor. Saskatchewan's canola industry is being put in the line of fire due to tariffs on Chinese EVs, which nobody wants, to protect North American EVs, which few can afford, impacting Saskatchewan canola sales, which people need and are already paying for. So it's a bad situation being made worse by bad policies by people who are either out of touch and don't care about that because they don't know because they're out of touch, or malicious people who want to harm the West while enriching the East. And if you're in the West, it certainly feels like the second one, right? It definitely feels like the second one. So here's Chrystia Freeland, and she says, this is the dumbest tariff war in history. And again, all of this rhetoric ignores the reality of the drugs are a real problem. The scale of the problem is being purposely underreported by the media and by Justin Trudeau leadership and all the rest. And they're completely ignoring the two things that Trump asked for, which is close the borders because illegals are using Canada, which is easy to get into the United States, and stop producing and running fentanyl down into the United States. And those things, according to Trump, haven't stopped. According to Sam Cooper, haven't stopped. According to the Canadian government, they're making these Sam Cooper and the American government are making a mountain out of a molehill. It's just less than 1%, and they don't know what they're talking about. It's only 43 kilograms, and that's nothing compared to what's coming in from the Mexican border. And so here's Chrystia Freeland not mentioning any of that at all. She's just saying he's being unreasonable. Here we go.
It's really a perverse approach, Anderson, because America is hurting itself. Moving in this direction, the president is killing the U.S. stock market. Your stock market is actually performing worse than the stock market in Europe or in Canada. You're going to raise the prices on gas. You're going to raise the prices on groceries. You're going to make electricity more expensive. And all for what reason? Because Canadians aren't nice enough? I mean, come on. This is just utterly absurd. America is hurting itself. And the end result has been to do something which is really hard to do, antagonize Canadians.
It's very easy to antagonize Canadians. We're a veneer of happy politeness where underneath we rage. I'm antagonized, but, politely antagonized. It's ridiculous. Nobody antagonizes me more than Chrystia Freeland, for crying out loud. Mr. Speaker. The remanded is talking about Trump tariffs, and he's responding to the food professor. The food professor says, Trump says the U.S. will target new tariffs on Canadian dairy in days. Clearly, both Trump and Lutnick and most politicians on both sides of the border do not understand how supply management works. As continues, this measure is almost inconsequential. Yeah, we don't send a lot of milk. There's not a lot of cross-border dairy, and it was supposed to ramp up with the USMCA, but it hasn't ramped up yet. Remanded says we export 6 times less than we import from the United States. Both countries keep within quota of the tariff rate quota agreement, which is reciprocated on both sides at 0% tariffs. And here's the reference, and it's talking about the USMCA and the milk. It says, in practice, the U.S. imports relatively little milk from Canada compared to its exports to Canada, $792 million in U.S. dairy exports versus $149 million in Canadian dairy imports in 2017. That's pre-USMCA. And the over-quota tariffs are rarely triggered due to Canada's supply management system, limiting excess production for export. Thus, the effective tariff most commonly applied to Canadian milk entering the United States is within the quota of about 7.5%. So, I don't know. The whole milk thing just seems to be another saber to rattle. And again, I need to understand the game to understand winners and losers. And if I don't understand what the goal is, how somebody scores a goal in this game, how somebody gets ground on their opponent in this game, then I don't know who to cheer for. And at this point in time, this milk thing doesn't make any sense. Is this your master stroke to win? Because if it's your master stroke to win, it doesn't look like a winner. I'll be honest, right? So these people don't understand milk quotas, and I mean, they negotiated the USMCA, and now it seems like Trump is trying to get the USMCA. So we'll see how it all plays out, hopefully with as little pain as possible, but it's every day more and more painful, which is frustrating. The food professor again says, not many American products in the 2 grocery stores I visited today, Mexico, Peru, South Africa, excuse me. Grocers are clearly de-Americanizing stores. So that's interesting. We'll see if that continues and how long this whole thing continues. But if it continues too long without a clear kind of end, it's not good for business to have uncertainty like this last for a long time. It's not good for American business, and it's not good for Canadian business. So you want to provide certainty. So if you've got a supply chain that runs through Canada, say you're an American company, you've got a supply chain that runs through Canada, and so what do? Do you turn that off, or do you wait it out? Do you have relationships with these people? You like the product. Your product is probably better because of it, both ways. And so what do you do? You know what I'm saying? And so it can't last long because of this. However, that doesn't seem to matter. And it seems also like Trump is using this to address other issues, but those issues aren't being addressed. They're being more enshrined. And so it's like, F, right? F if we do, F if we don't. You can't leave things as they are, but if you change things, people get mad. And if you try to be bold and change things, people push back and things happen that are unexpected. And so the chess game continues, but people understand it less. And now it looks like everybody's losing, right? So, goodness me, it's not good. And I hope it gets better. Fingers crossed. I hope it gets better It seems like it's going to get worse before it gets better, but I hope it gets better and then just gets better. So fingers crossed. Alberta secession says why, or Alberta secession why, says this is our grab bag of governance, but we have to talk about the Liberal leadership. You know what? We're going to do Liberal leadership now, and then election, and then grab bag of governance, because the grab bag of governance can kind of wait. This looks like AI. That thing of Polyev, this looks like AI. It looks it's so AI. It looks really, really weird. And it's posted by him. So it's weird. Anyway, here's, let's do our election stuff. The Liberals want to crown their new leader, and we're running into this right now. And Ryan says, I can attest to what the CBC report is reporting, not being able to cast my ballot for Liberal leadership candidate because they're running into all sorts of technical problems. So this race is rigged. Make no mistake. Ryan says, well, here, we'll listen to the report.
Well, we're expecting to find out who the next Liberal leader is. You know, there has been some problems with the voting process, actually. It has been a little complicated in order to get people verified. There's obviously various levels of security that the Liberal Party has set up. So there have been lots of complaints about that. And the party has said that it will allow people to have their identity verified up until 11:59 tomorrow night. Things like, you know, the name that you submitted doesn't match the name that you have. So those are complications the party is dealing with, and that is problematic.
Right. So all sorts of identity issues, ability to confirm the identity, et cetera, et cetera. They have had less than half their registered voters vote for the leadership race. Now, I was saying that 400,000 and then, you know, whatever it is, 150,000 people voting, that's 39%. But that was assuming that 400,000 is the total number of Liberal members in the Liberal Party. I don't know how many Liberal members there are. So hold on. But it's going to be different, right? Like it's not 30, it's 39% of the people who signed up to vote, but that may not represent the whole Liberal Party. So I have to find out how many members the Liberal Party has. Hold on. I'll see if I can. Wikipedia and all the sources are using 400,000 as the number. And that seems not right. Like that doesn't seem correct. So, all it takes to have the Liberal number is to have somebody sign up on their website. They don't have to verify the identity of that person. That person is now a Liberal member, but the voting membership is half that. So weird. That's weird. That is, I don't think that's accurate at all. You can check the Wikipedia if you want to. I'm on a different computer, otherwise I'd drag it in. But anyway, sorry about that. Weird. I don't think that that's right at all. Anyway, carrying on, Tom Quiggin is highlighting this. He's responding to himself. He says, as Mark Carney is set to take over the Liberal Party today, and become prime minister, it's worth remembering that he wants a full-blown trade war with the United States to cover for Canada's Chinese, Khalistani, Islamic, Iranian foreign influence, which has wrecked our government. And Tom Quiggin highlights his receipts here. He says, just my own view, but it appears Trudeau, Ford, Carney, and all are willing to get into a full-blown trade war with the USA. They know they cannot win, but are willing to do so in order to avoid the question of stopping China's control over much of our government and economy. Yeah, I've kind of come to the same conclusion. I think that's exactly what's going on. And I think that they're hopeful that they can use any conflict, to cover for that malfeasance and hand the bag to Donald Trump. And Trump's making it easy for them by communicating badly. And it sucks because, like, I don't know how you support it. I don't know how you can support it because it's got to be friggin' clear, right? He's in charge. And if he doesn't have control yet, then he can say, listen, this is pause until I have control of the government. And then when he has control of the government, he says, listen, this is what I'm going to do. And this is the goal of what we're going to do. And this is why, right? And then action it. Don't do these half measures and like bullshit that, you know, oh, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. Try your idea. If your idea fails, pivot and be open and honest about it. That's how you get support, for crying out loud. Ruby Dhalla says after taking $350,000 and keeping it, you'd think the Liberal Party would at least extend an invite to a candidate that was running to be its party leader and is a 3-time MP. Maybe if I had not signed up almost 100,000 members, spoken up with progressive ideas and not challenge the status quo, the establishment would have invited me. And so King Bomp was asking, are you attending the convention? And she says, maybe if they invited me, but they didn't. So Pierre Poilievre is talking about Mark Carney. He says, while Canadian media do no scrutiny on the man who will become prime minister in mere days, last week, one of the world's most prestigious financial newspapers did a massive expose on the very deceptive presentation of his company's accounting. The company's stock has crashed nearly $20 billion since the story broke just 2 days ago. Is this how he will run the government's books? Yes. And worse. He'll get us into a trade war that we won't win in order to cover for his inner circle. Bradshaw says $4.5 million in 2 months. Do we get to see the donor list? So apparently, according to National News Watch, Mark Carney raised $4.5 million in the 2-month leadership race. That's a lot of money. I mean, love to see the donors list, right? So who's on it? Probably the same people who are donating to Justin Trudeau. This is a chilling video, and Tom Quiggin says the RCMP are now being used as muscle by the Liberal Party to silence the media. Another weird part of this is Adam Van Kay telling this person that it's not safe to walk backwards. Turn around. You have to turn around, right? And then he makes this face. Honestly, it's like right here. He makes this face like, I'm going to tell you have to turn around, and then I'm going to look at the camera like a gym look. Like, ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. Lavoie, Alexandre Lavoie, is asking, are you RCMP? And they say, yep. And she says, are you guys paid by the campaign or the party or the taxpayer? And they say, you need to leave now.
Are you an RCMP?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is it something normal to see a candidate having private RCMP?
Well, I'm not really here to answer any questions, so we're going to have to leave the property.
But is it kind of normal that we see that? Is it are you paid by the party or you paid with the taxpayer?
Well, I'm not really here to answer any questions, so we're going to have to leave the property. I'm here to answer questions. It's a private event. We're asking you.
Okay.
We're not here to make trouble, okay?
No, we just ask if it's normal to have.
It's normal to register in advance before you.
Is it normal that a candidate have a private RCMP?
It's normal.
I asked you to leave, please. Is that private?
So you need to relax. It sounds like you're getting very aggravated.
I am, because the organizer is telling you to leave the place.
I don't want you to walk backwards, sir. It's not safe to walk backwards. It's not safe to walk backwards. Turn around.
Please. Can you leave?
What is he, in a boy band? Like, seriously.
Who is funding you?
Can you leave this place?
Can you answer that?
Can you leave this place, please?
If I want
Can you leave the place, please?
Yeah, but he's not elected.
You're told to.
Yeah, but why we have two RCMP? Who's paying you? Is it the party or is it the taxpayer?
Can you leave this? Can you leave it, please?
Is it the party
Can
or
you
is
leave?
it
Can you leave?
taxpayer money?
Can you leave the?
That's crazy. Two RCMP here for Mark Carney.
Can you not stand by the door, please?
Stand by the door. I'm outside.
There are
then.
guests that are coming,
Okay.
and you're blocking the door.
I'm not blocking the door right now. They can enter. Thank you. Are you an
Awful. This is Canada, right? My goodness, I'm embarrassed. Lion Advocacy says it's not unusual for private organizations to hire municipal police officers as paid duty. Many municipal police forces have publicly available forms to make such requests, but I didn't know the RCMP can be hired as paid duty as well. Where's the form? Something is off here. Does seem very, very strange, right? Those rebel reporters getting targeted by the new old leader of the Liberal Party, right? That insider that he is. Lori Goldstein says, little we know. Okay, he's responding to Chris, excuse me. And Chris says, we still don't know how much Carney's changed carbon tax will cost Canadians. Carney should be answering questions, not kicking people out of events, right? And Lori Goldstein says, the little we know is bad enough. Mark Carney is going to hide the consumer carbon tax inside the industrial cap and trade carbon tax by another name and introduce a second carbon tax, a tariff on imported goods, if his government decides the country of origin isn't doing enough to fight climate change. So Canadian businesses are looking for a way to not be Canadian anymore because of Trump tariffs and because of this crap, because it's expensive. And that expense is money they can't invest in their business. If you make $100 and right now $10 of it goes to the government, you're like, okay, I can deal with that $10 operation cost. It's an operational cost, 10% off the top. Okay, fine, fair enough. And I'm just making up a number. I'm sure maybe it's 15%, but it's a reasonable amount that people have kind of come to terms with, right? But then you add another tax on that, and all of a sudden your business isn't viable. Like, what, depending on the margin you're operating on, and the margin is just the percentage of your revenue that is money that you take for your business, right? Sometimes you can operate, I mean, grocery stores operate on a 2 or 3% margin, right? With 1% being loss, right? So it's a 4% margin really, but 1% operates as a loss. But you could operate on a 30% margin, operate on a 50% margin. Some places operate on 100% margin, right? If you buy in, Walmart's a good example of that. If you buy in volume, and then so you get a lot of stock for cheap, you can operate that way. But a lot of places do not operate on that high a margin, 100% margin or anything like that. 50% would be good too. And so when you start to adding, okay, well, it's 15% tax here, and then another 25% tax for the carbon tax, and then another 25% tax for the import tax into the United States. Why are you going to be a Canadian company? If you're not a Canadian company anymore, all of a sudden 50% of your taxes are gone. Just, you don't have to deal with them. They're gone. And then you can use that money for your business. Does that make sense? I think people don't understand. Like, when it's anti-business policies have real impact, because the business is just going to leave. They're going to leave, and they're going to take the jobs too. Right? And that's unless you go with the business. And it's not easy to do that. But I mean, there are places that want to encourage like having a business come and domicile there, meaning like park the business there, right? So the business's address is in Delaware, and then they pay the minimal Delaware taxes, and then they have full access to the United States, and they make their product in Delaware or wherever it is that they domicile, and then no taxes. Right? Then they have a tax profile that looks very different from the Canadian tax profile. Anti-business leads to flight of the business to a place that's more business friendly. It used to be important for Canadian politicians to create a business friendly environment because we're competing with business friendly environments. But now I guess they don't care at all. Because carbon taxes, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So businesses will leave. It's not if, it's when. And it's speed, how quickly they leave. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.